Hello, everybody. I'm Dr. Shelli Dry, and I'm here to present our monthly webinar. Tonight's webinar is going to be focusing on motor development for those young children. So as we're going through this, anytime you want to ask a question, you can always put it in the question and answer, or just try to put your hand up and I will try to pay attention to that so I can answer some questions for you. So we're going to get started, and I want to share my screen. So we have titled this one, Twinkle Toe Tots. Now, sorry about that. There we go. All right. So we're going to have a few objectives tonight just to talk a little bit about those toe walkers, but we're also going to work a little bit on gross motor development and balance and coordination in our young babies. And then hopefully go through some fun activities and tools, and then I've got a few really brief videos to show you all. So again, if you have any questions, just go ahead and enter those. And I want to make sure that you all are also allowed to talk. So yeah, so I think y'all can just chat if you want to. Feel free to interrupt me, do whatever you need to. So when our babies are little, one of the things we know is that there are babies who naturally walk on their toes. They do that. When they're starting to learn to walk, and that's just part of natural development. So that's not a concern for anyone. It's every baby when they're starting to walk will come up on their toes and kind of play with walking, not at the very first part when they're trying to get that balance, but they do. That is a typical part of development, is toe walking. So it's not a concern until it's gone on excessively. Really, the research tells us after the age of 2, but as a therapist, I always look also at if it's something that they don't ever come down from. So if they're toe walking and they don't ever come down off their toes, then we want to work on that also. So there are some neurological conditions and that contribute to toe walking, and those are things like cerebral palsy, muscle problems, muscular dystrophy, things like that. Then kids are trying to stabilize, they'll come up on their toes. Children with autism a lot of times seek out that input from coming up on their toes. So we do see this as a common thing with children with neurological conditions. Not every child, of course, but with some. And then there are children who just have a family history of toe walking, and that's referred to as idiopathic or habitual toe walking. And a lot of times that's the one that will resolve on itself, on its own. Now, again, you don't want to let it go on too long, because as they're up on those toes, they're shortening their hamstrings. So let's see if I can show you on my baby here. If they're flat, then this is nice and long, this Achilles tendon. But if they're always on their toes, this will shorten, and then they won't be able to get down on their flat foot. So there's some things I'm going to show you as far as stretches, but really with babes. And so then that's the tight tendons is the next one. And again, that's typical for early walkers, but it's not something we want to see go on, and it's not past the age of 2, and it's not something we want to see that happens consistently every time they walk. Now, you'll see some children with sensory problems, and they are really a lot of times they're hypersensitive to the way the grass feels or maybe the carpet feels, and then they will come up on their toes to just try to decrease that sensory input on the surface of their foot. There's also children with sensory problems who are really trying to increase the input from stretching, putting those muscles on stretch, and that's called proprioceptive input, the input from your muscles and joints that kind of tells you where you are in space. And so we'll see children with sensory problems, they'll also toe walk. Again, there's a fine line between when it becomes a problem, and if it's before the age of 2, we're not going to be as concerned about it, although we can still work on those motor skills because that's important for babies and all kids. Now, we also know that kids with postural difficulties will toe walk because that just helps them feel more stable if they're really increasing that tone in the extensor side, which is the back. So if they're up on their toes and they're really increasing that tone to accommodate for problems with posture, or sometimes you'll hear core muscles, things like that, those difficulties can contribute to toe walking also. And then the final thing is kids with visual difficulties. That just might be where they find the best visual field. Again, we're going to work on it, and we're going to help them find other ways to get that visual stimulation or get into the right visual field. So some of those treatments, we've talked about stretches, exercises, and games, and I'll go through that a lot more thoroughly. But then there's also things like the astronaut program. That's a really nice sensory program that works on all that vestibular input and movement games and proprioceptive input. And it just kind of brings the body together to help decrease the toe walking. There are times when orthosis are necessary. So if you need to go see the doctor and get a cast or an orthotic fit, you might have an AFO, which is an ankle foot orthotic, and that comes up, again, I'll use my baby doll here, that's going to come up right below the knee. That's a longer one. I've seen some orthoses with just a stop right here at the calf, and that will decrease the toe walking. So there's different things they can do. If there's a problem where it's more severe, they might do serial casting, and that's those kids who can't come down flat, who they don't get this nice 90-degree range, and so their foot, they're always on their toes, and they don't have the range of motion. They might do serial casting where they stretch it with a cast, and they'll do that, they'll change the cast as the range increases. And then after the casts are off, then you work on all those good gains and keeping that range of motion that you've developed through the casting. There are some children who benefit from Botox to these muscles back here, and that will kind of release those muscles and then allow them to come down flat. And of course, a final option would be surgery, and that is necessary for some children. But it's all done very systematically, and it's always paired with therapy afterwards to help teach the family ways to get the range, teach the child ways to play and not to be afraid to come down on their feet. Are there any questions yet? I don't want to miss anybody here. Okay, I'm not seeing any questions, so I'm going to move on. And the next part of it is really going through a lot more of the things that we can do. So I've got a couple videos. This is a heel walking game. And you're going to hear, this is a little bit older child. She's 6, but you're going to hear her baby in the background, and she tries to play a little bit too and imitate. And she's just a bit under 2, so she's not great at imitating, but she tries. But with the heel walking, we'll play that one again. You can see she's pulling those toes up off the surface. And she's really practicing that, increasing that range of motion in the opposite way of toe walking. That's a great stretch, and it's fun for kids. So they really like it. And you can do all kinds of things. You can do patterns, you can do obstacle courses while you're heel walking, you can do silly songs, try new dances, things like that, that really makes it fun for kids. But, you know, as she was heel walking, she is pulling those toes up very nicely. Now on this next one, you're going to see how the bigger sister can demonstrate for the younger ones. So if you're working with one of those babies who isn't quite 2, then it's going to have to be a lot of play and a lot of fun. And it's a great idea to bring the siblings in. So if you get the older sibling to do it, then the baby wants to contribute. And you'll see that in this video. These are just really short videos, little clips. So I'm sorry, this is not the video. We'll see that in the future. This is actually her showing how to do duck walk. And it's really just the positioning for duck walk. So as you can see, she's got her arms hooked over her knees. And unfortunately, we did not get down to those feet, but those feet are really flat. And that duck walk position, if I can get this knee to bend, it does a nice flex at the knee and then a nice flex at the ankle. And it's a great stretch. But the important thing is it's really fun for the kids. So duck walking and a lot of other animal walks really works on increasing that flexion, and it gets them moving over the ankle. So they're not just stretching it, but they're moving up and down and getting a lot of functional use. So those two are heel walking and duck walking. Next, we'll see this little one do some crab walk. Well, let me get to the next page. And she's going to do crab walk. Now, crab walk is really nice because it develops a lot through the core. So it's, let's see if I can get that going again and stop it right there. So you can see she's really propped nice on the arms and the hands, the way she has those positioned. And so she's working on her shoulders and developing those, and she's strengthening her hands and developing those palmar arches. This is beautiful for gross motor development, and it really contributes to all those fine motor skills also, because you want to get those shoulders more stable and you want to work on that core, you know, get that body developed. And as you can see, she's pretty good at it. You know, she's just 7. So she is working on keeping her body up, and she's working hard, and you can see that. I see a question. I'm going to see what this is. To attempt crab walking with a 12-month, though, the question is, would it be appropriate? It would. You will have to support the baby. You can try it. It's really hard. Crab walking is really hard. Now, with a 12-month-old, though, sometimes they do like those kind of games, but you're going to have to kind of give them that extra support. They're not going to have the strength here. Those belly muscles aren't strong enough yet. They haven't walked long enough. And it might be more of where they don't move, but you just get them in the position. What a lot of times with a baby this young, who's 12 months, you might just want to work on more of a bridge. So let me get a surface and see if I can demonstrate that. I'll just use the step stool. So with a 12-month-old, I would work more on bridging position than trying to do a full crab walk, just because it's so difficult to coordinate all of that together and to have the strength. But bridging is beautiful. It gets those feet down flat, and it's really super great if you're doing that when you're diaper changing. So you tie that into that functional activity of a diaper change, and then you can work on bridging, and you just, you know, tease them, say, oh, help mommy, can you lift your bottom? And another great thing with babies, even at 12 months, once they learn that bridge and learn how to lift their bottom up, you can get them to hold it longer. And that's really a better activity for a baby that young than a crab walk. But you get them to hold it by running little cars and things underneath them. So you play games where you're like, you're a bridge, and here comes the car, beep, beep, beep. And the car's driving under them, and they have to hold it a little bit longer. So I love tying that bridge into fun games, of course, because we need to play, and then also working on functional activities, and then you're doing it multiple times a day. So bridge is really a great thing to do. And you're welcome. And then, so the next thing, we've looked at crab walk. Let's see what else we have here. No, that's just got her going again. She's a hard worker. So these ideas I could not get videos of. We ran out of time and we didn't have a deep enough slide. But these are things that you can do every day. So you can, a lot of times people are, you know, trying to teach the right way to go down a slide. But one of the nice things is slides and ramps are great for increasing flexion in the ankles. So flexion is that bringing that ankle back and getting that heel down flat, because we want to develop that heel toe pattern with walking. So you go up the slide and you're getting the input into the ankles and the feet, and they're really working hard, but they're also developing their core as they have to pull themselves up. It's so much harder to come walk up the slide or crawl up that, you know, half crawl up the slide, as this picture up here shows you. So this little one, this was a nice picture of her with her feet flat and really working hard to go up. And you can do it on ramps. You can do it on a lot of different things. Slides are just the easiest because about every playground does have a slide. Now, there can't be other kids around because they get a little upset. And then another super great game, and I love this one, and I do this one in therapy a lot, is painting with your feet. Kids think it's so much fun. Now, a lot of our kids, they don't have the sensory ability to put paint actually on their feet, so you can wrap bubble wrap on there, and then you just put a big sheet of paper out, and then, you know, put the paint on the bubble wrap that's wrapped around their foot, and then have them stomp. And the more they're stomping around, they're just really giving themselves that great input. It's a good sensory input, and it's a good reminder of where your foot should be as you're stomping and playing. Throw some music on and have fun with it. And kids, I'm telling you, they love this game. Another really fun thing you can do with bubble wrap, you can spread it out and you can do bubble wrap runs. So they're popping the wrap as they run down the hall. And while we're all stuck indoors, or I mean, sometimes we can go out if the weather's nice, but while everybody's kind of isolated, it's fun to have these extra games you can play. Get that big roll of bubble wrap and just spread it down your hall somewhere, or, you know, spread it in one of your rooms and let them stomp on it and pop it and run up and down. That's a great way to get those feet and ankles a lot stronger. And down here, this is very similar. This is stomping on bubbles. This is a game that children, every child will do. They love it. Of course, you can pull up bubbles anytime, and they really love that. But when you teach them to stomp the bubbles, they think it's so much fun, and they're hilarious, and they'll do that longer than a lot of other activities. Another thing I've done in clinic is I will spread one of my big mats out on the floor and put shaving cream down there. And if it's a little bit of an older child or a child who needs help, I'll have it. If it's a child who needs balance, then I might have the mat and the shaving cream closer to a rail that they can hold on to. But if it's an older child, we always use those hand grips overhead, so like a U-bar, and then we'll slide through the shaving cream, and they love that. That's a great way to get sensory input, but also to get that movement with the feet. And finally down there was, I went too fast, sorry, a balance board, and that's a rocker board. I'll show you that. I've got that one here. So, not sure y'all can see that. So the rocker board is nice because you can do two things. You can work on that side to side with your ankles and really get your ankles stronger side to side. And babies can do this. They might need your hand to hold, but the great thing is, I hope you can see my ankles here, is when you tilt it back, you get that flexion at the ankle joint. I don't know how well you can see that. Try it with the baby. I don't think you can. But rocker boards are super at tilting, and it's exactly what it says. It's a rocker board. You can make these at home, but it tilts backwards, and this one's just covered with carpet to make it a little more stable. And once you tilt that rocker board, then you get that flexion at the ankle. So it's a good stretch, and it's better than just trying to pull the feet back with your hand all the time, which is a lot of times what we end up having to do. But we try to find fun games too. Okay. And the next area is some of these stretching games. So let's go over some of these. Now these are just a couple things. Yoga is so good. Kids love yoga, and these are from yoga. So of course we have downward dog. I think I have a video of this on the next slide, but you just want your baby in downward dog. Now this is the same position those babies get in when they're learning to come up to stand. So they, when they're finally learning to push off the floor, let me get a surface here for you guys, then babies are in this bear crawl or downward dog position. And then they learn to come up. But if they're staying there, if you're working on stretches, then you want to get their hands down there. And get their feet flat on the surface. And so downward dog is a great thing for getting those ankles down and pushing those heels. And that's kind of what you want to tell them. Push your heels into the floor. And you might have to touch it because babies don't always understand heel. That's not one of their first body parts. But that downward dog is a great position. And really babies love yoga, and they'll do it with you. If you do yoga, they'll do it with you. If you don't, then they'll do it anyway, if you make it fun. Kids do love yoga. And then the next one is that frog position. And that's what that little girl right here is in, more of a frog position. And as you can see, these are beautiful ankles. Look at all that range she has. And again, she's working on the hands and getting those nice arches developed. So these stretching games and yoga is just really good for overall motor development. I think I have a couple more videos now. Let's see what this little one does for us. So she's demonstrating exactly what we were talking about before, is bridge, and that went really quick. And she's just holding it up. She could scoot her feet out a little bit more to get more work and be able to get a higher range. But this was just a demo video, so we just did it really quick for you guys. But this bridge, this is appropriate for much younger children also. And it is something that you can do and do a lot of play with. Let's see if I can get this to advance. So she's demonstrating another yoga pose here. And this is that warrior pose. And let's see if we get down here to her feet. And you can see how she's got her feet in alternate position. She's working on not just her ankles, but also working on those hips and getting them stronger and more open and flexible. So again, this is just a little bit of a clip to show you guys some of the positions and how the arms are out there, but it's just a yoga pose. And it's one, when you're doing yoga with kids, you kind of take what they, you know, it may not be perfect, but they're having fun and they're getting a lot of stretches in. So let's look at some of the other games you can play. Now, this one is really cool. Kids who like that sensory input to their feet, and even kids who are working on tolerating sensory input, can usually do something like this, where they're rolling. Either, you know, a rolling pin works great, rolling that under your foot. The other thing, I've got a pool noodle. Pool noodles are super great for that game. And what happens when you have your baby standing on a surface like this is they are moving that foot around, and they're really working on the arches of their feet. So if they're standing on a pool noodle, if they're standing on a ball or something like that, the foot is naturally curving around it, and you're working on getting those arches. So this is really a good, fun game for kids with flat feet, and getting them to roll things under their feet and play games. This other one up here in the corner, you know, scrunching up a towel with your toes. But all of that is just development for those arches in your feet. And so that's just a part that we don't want to forget about, is that we also have to develop the arches. And then this is one of those stretches. And that's just using something like a TheraBand. And you can get, I think they're just called exercise bands in the store. You can get them in any exercise department. And they are great for, I'll take my shoe off. Well, I have to back up a bit, sorry. But you just put it around the edge of the foot, and then you pull back towards you. So that's a stretch that kids can do themselves as they start to get, you know, 2, 3, especially 3, when they're wanting to do everything themselves. Something like that. You don't have to use TheraBand. It's just, I like it because it's not only is it stretchy and it gives, but it's long. And so it gives you enough room to get your hands around it if your arms are a little bit, or your legs are a little bit longer and your arms aren't long enough. You can do it with a towel. That would work also. Things like that if you don't have something like this. But you can, like I said, TheraBand you can find just about anywhere now. It's used in a lot of exercise gyms, so it's a lot more prevalent than it used to be. Down here, these are just, you know, your typical games, slip and slides, fun. That's very similar to what I was describing with the shaving cream on the exercise mats and sliding. So slip and slides are a good way to get that input into your feet. So you're thinking about your sensory input, but also getting those feet down flat, because what we're trying to develop is that heel toe pattern. And kids who are always up on their toes, we don't want them shortening that Achilles tendon, but we also, what happens is they walk like this and they don't get a nice heel toe pattern. And it does interfere with coordination and balance. And as they get older, you know, it really can interfere enough to where if that Achilles shortens too much, then they may end up having surgery. And then this is a pool that's just filled with bubbles. So it's just, you know, soap water instead of, but you can put all kinds of things in the pool, any kind of sensory engagement. Okay, so let's talk about those heel toes again. We really want to develop that heel toe pattern when kids are walking. And we have a lot of different things we can do. This is, you know, a balance board, and there's a balance board over here that I could show how to do the heel toe with the baby. So I don't know if you could see with the baby. I'll try it. but I'll have to take off my shoes. So when you're on a balance board, you almost always have that heel toe going because it's nice and narrow. Now you have your your landscape logs. Those are great outdoor balance beams. So letting your kids walk on those if you have those in your yard, and walking around the yard on those, they practice that. It's just the idea that you want a nice narrow beam so that they're not then they'll just go back up on their toes if they don't have something to help them work on that heel toe pattern. You also can do that with a 2x4, so it doesn't have to be anything special. And then heel drops, that's that bringing those heels off the back like I showed you with the rocker board, bringing those heels down. I'll show you again with this. Step stools are fantastic for that. And also if you have stairs in your house, that's fantastic, but you're gonna have to be there with the baby. You just get them to the edge, and then you want to teach them to drop their heel a bit. And it's really good on steps because you have the rails, but as long as you're supporting them on, trying to position that so y'all can see, sorry. As long as you're, as long as you're supporting them on the step stool, then you can use a step stool. And you're just getting them to the edge, having them bring their feet so that at least half their foot needs to be on the step stool for safety, but then have them drop that heel down. And you'll get, we really want this stretch. So we want the toes coming up towards the knees. And that's what we want with those stretch bands, with the heel drops, with anything, because we have to keep this tendon long. So when you have a child who is habitually toe walking, you need to be concerned about this tendon getting short. It doesn't happen overnight, but it does happen over time. So that's why the heel drops really are helpful. And that's what this one down here is showing, the same thing on a little bit. I think that's just an exercise step, but it's just, you can see right here, you can even see that, if you look closely, I don't know if y'all can see it, but you can see that that tendon is really stretched out there. And that's what you need. You need to keep those tendons stretched. And here's a balance beam, very similar to the one I have down here, only this one's in a figure 8. Now, figure 8 walking is great because not only are they doing those heel toes, but they are working on bilateral coordination, and that is being able to use both sides equally together. So it's so important, and we really look for that as a therapist all the time, is how we can get that coordination to develop a little bit better for kids. Figure 8s are one of the best things. Other things you can do to kind of increase the challenge, if you have a child who really likes that figure 8 pattern and walking on a balance beam, or sometimes I'll use, if they can't balance very well, I'll use painter's tape and just do a figure 8 on the floor, nice big one in painter's tape. And as they're walking that pattern and they're shifting around and going side to side, a great game is to then hold up either flashcards, pictures of family members, something they like to look at, read them a book so they have to look at the picture. But what you want them to do is visually engaging, and they're starting, as they're turning their head to look at things, they're starting to feel that movement more through their legs. So as they get really good, then we can increase the challenge and make it a little bit more difficult. It doesn't look like this picture shows her looking down, but a lot of times when kids are on a balance board, they are on a balance beam, I'm sorry, then they have to look down. So they're always using their eyes to look down and watch what those feet are doing. So as I said, that's just something you guys can watch for, is do they have to watch their feet? And then when they don't, then how can we increase the challenge. Well, we do that by, as a therapist, you know, I'll be holding things up and flashcards if we're working on letters or numbers, or pictures if you're working on picture identification, whatever the child, wherever they are in their skills. And then we can incorporate that. Or if they just want to look at a book, we can do that too. And then just having them constantly have to look away as they continue to walk. And it's just so helpful. Oh, I forgot we had a video of my little one here. And she is trying to balance. So this one was a little bit difficult for her. She's trying to balance on a hammock stand. And so she's working hard though. And as you see, as you see her do that, she's also trying to show how she gets her foot around it. It was very difficult for her, but she's a trooper. She tried several times. She really wanted to master that and just hold that position for a second. So these are just a little bit more games to work on that bilateral motor coordination, and different things you can do. Therapy balls are great. I've been sitting on one, which I do quite frequently because they're great for posture, but they're also great for kids. And you put that baby on the ball. And this is a fantastic one for 12 months, 6 months. I put all kinds of little babies on the ball. Get it in a better position for you guys. Get that baby up there. And you're rolling them forward and backwards. And what you want to do is roll them down to where they're coming to the floor and pushing into those feet. And then you can, you know, play with them and say, oh, push off, and teach them to push forward and back. So every time they come back, they're getting that input into those ankles and joints, and it's a great stretch. So that's one thing you can do on a therapy ball. Of course, you can walk out on your hands if you're also concerned about shoulders. You can work on getting that head up and tucking their arms under if you're working on stretching the back. And then as you see in that picture, you know, they've got, that's a little bit older child, but she's also working on bringing her knees up and working on her core down here. That's in that bottom picture right there. So she is tucking her knees in and pulling the ball under her, and that's really a good core exercise when you're on that unstable surface of the ball, and then you have to bring it up and then you push it back. And it's something that kids really like. It's a lot of fun, and they'll go back and forth several times. When you bring a therapy ball out, there's a lot of kids who really respond to that. So there's other things you can do. Is in this picture we see this little girl. She's going to do the ball, and she's going to do it side and bring it up and go to the other side. So again, really working on those core muscles. She's working on lateral flexion. She's working on rotation as she moves that ball around. She's really developing all this core. And I do a lot of things where I'll have the kids do like around the world. So we'll go up and we'll come down and we'll go up and around. And I think you can see how my body is swaying side to side. It's so good for the kids in developing those muscles, getting all those lateral muscles developed, laterals, the ones on your side, getting that flexion going, and really helping kids get so much stronger and increasing their ability to, again, work on that bilateral coordination. Now, another thing I love to do on the ball with kids, this little girl, she's showing you what we refer to as cross crawl. But again, it's bilateral coordination, and you can do it You can do it standing, where you're just bringing that knee up. And what you do is you bring your elbow to your opposite knee. So you can do it in standing. And kids will do that, they'll do that a lot. And that's good. Cross crawl is a great coordination. But if kids do not have the ability to do it in standing, then I will have them sit on the ball and do it on the ball. And if they can't quite get that alternating pattern, then I will put a sock on one hand and a sock on their foot, and I'll say, bring sock to sock. So, I don't know if y'all could see that, so sorry. Sock on their hand, sock on their foot, opposite foot, and then they're touching. And then you say, now go skin to skin, sock to sock, skin to skin, sock to sock, skin to skin. Do the same pattern, but you're just giving them that extra cue of how to alternate. Kids don't always know left from right at a very young age. And then on this one, we have this little one balancing a book on her feet and then a ball on the book. So everyone knows how good that is for those core muscles, but also she's getting those feet bent. She's getting that stretch in that Achilles tendon, and she's getting the range, and it's just, kids love it. If you make stretches fun, they love it, and they'll just keep on doing it for you. Make sure there's no question, and I don't see anything, so let's move on. Move this to forward a little bit. And so we have our little one here again. She is going to show us rolling like a ball. So this is where you wrap those arms around your knees, and then you're just rolling back and forth. And each time you're coming up, you're using your belly muscles and you're pulling yourself up, and then you go back, and then you have to use those belly muscles again to come up, and you really have to stabilize. So you're developing all the muscles of your core when you do this rolling like a ball. See how she does it? And this is where we're going to see her sister.
Gwendolyn, can you go sit on the bed?
That was her.
Gwendolyn.
Her older sister is my videographer. So the oldest of the three is the video. And she was a little upset that little Miss Gwendolyn got in there.
Can you lift your legs up?
Then she tried to get her to participate, but she's not quite filming them.
Don't eat that. Gwendolyn, go play with the stump.
And so the fun part was, of course, she sees big sister, and there she is. She's going to try to do it. Rolling like a ball, little ones will try to do. You might have to help them. They may not quite get their arms around their knees, and they might not be able to get back up once they get back. But I've done it just moving them like that to get that movement pattern for them and teach them how. So I may put the baby in the ball position, and instead of having them bend their knees and putting their hands on the outside, I'll tuck their arms under their thighs like this. And then I'm going to support them as they go back and help them get forward. But you can do it with babies. And this is a good game. This gets a lot of vestibular input. You can go slow, and you can work a little bit faster. Again, with those little ones, we can't do too much jarring of the head and movement, but we can do it gently with our hands and help them move through it. So that is rolling like a ball, but it was really to show you guys how much a younger baby will try to imitate that older sibling or even another child. Okay, now here's our little movie star. She is going to show you, this is Pike, but as you can see, when you look at this, her knees are bent here. This is a very hard position. Her knees are bent, but then look at, she's got this nice range at her ankle. And, you know, she's got her toes down. She's getting her arches. You can see a little bit of an arch development here. So this, again, this is a plank move.
Cute.
And she's going to stay there. That one was really quick. But what I wanted you to see in plank is how nice it works every little bit of the muscles. You know, she's got a little extra range here at doubles, but she's working on her shoulders and her back. And this plank is so good for the back. And a lot of times, you know, you can put things down there for kids to look at while they're holding plank. They might hold it longer. You can make it a race or make it a competition. See who can keep themselves up the longest, you know, just fun things like that to increase the amount of time that they stay in this plank position. But again, it is very good for developing every bit of those extensor muscles, and it helps. That was super fast. I'm gonna stop it right there. It really helps, you know, develop these extensor muscles, but it's going to help as she does it more. Those little legs will get stronger for her, and then it's really working on these feet. So I've had one little one recently who she was just a little bit over a year. I started with her when she was just a month old. And when she got to just a little bit over a year, she would hold plank. She would do that a lot. She worked in that. She came from a very large family, and she had her older siblings were like 18 and 16, and then she had, you know, there were some that were 8 and 7, and there was 6 kids in the family, and she would do it because they would laugh at her, and they're like, she's holding plank, and the more they cheered her on, the longer she would hold it, and it really was a great motor developer for her.
Yeah. Yeah.
See if I can get this to move on. Now we're going to see our superstar, and she is going to be able to do this without sister's input, I believe. And she's holding the rolling like a ball position, and she wanted to see how long she could hold it there without actually going back. So again, really working. Let's see if I can get it to stop it. Here you can see these muscles in your core. So when you're doing that rolling like a ball and you stop and you hold it, it's like, if anybody does yoga, it's like boat pose in yoga, but it's really hard to hold that pose for a long time. So she is working on holding it without moving out of that position and falling backwards. Now, she didn't do it for a long time, but she did have fun doing it, and she just loves to challenge herself. So that was a lot of fun for her. Okay, now we're going to see frogging. So if you remember a few slides back, I showed you that position of frog. And then this is her during movement in frog. So now, as you see, those feet are not coming all the way flat here. They would, I think, if she came for a little bit longer, but she's not getting the bottom of her heels down there. She's not getting full heel strike here, but she is getting a lot of range, and she's working, you know, she's got all this coordination going on of moving your hands forward and then moving your feet forward. And it does work on just about every part of what we would be looking at if we had a child who was a habitual toe walker or who had some other problems with motor control. So I'll let y'all see that one again. And she's just a little hopper, isn't she? And she does have her nails painted, so that's a good thing. And let's see if we can advance. So the next one, on this one, she is working on balancing on one leg. You can see that this balancing games, of course, are going to really work on getting that heel down, because you need a nice flat surface. You need your foot on flat on the surface to work on balance. It's really hard to balance if you're already up on your toes. So it does help you bring that foot down. And then, you know, kids love to see how long they can stand on one leg. You can pretend like you're a flamingo and see if you can stand on one leg. You can have challenges with mom or with older siblings and stand on one leg. You'll find that kids will stand better and longer on either their right or their left, whichever side is stronger than they do. Everybody has one stronger side. So we're going to see her. She is a significantly right driven on this. Now, the funny thing is she is a left-handed child, but she's going to balance on her right leg there. Now, she wasn't secure enough to come too far away from that wall. She did come off of it, but she went to have a little bit of extra support if she needed it. She was able to come away and balance for periods of time without leaning. But it's okay to, you know, give them that little extra support. If they want to play the game and they want to pretend, you know, practice balancing, have them close to something that they can grab onto, because they don't want to fall. Kids don't want to fall. They want to, but they like to challenge themselves, especially, as I said, this little one, she loves to challenge herself, and she's a go-getter. So she got close to the wall. She was able to come away from it. And then we have to always encourage her to work on the other leg and the balance on the other leg also. So that is all the activities that I was going to show on the video. Now I do have time for questions. I also have some other little toys here that you might have in your house. So these are other things you can do, especially with those little, you know, 1 to 4, which we were kind of trying to target at this webinar. So this is a scooter board. Now, I don't know how many people have scooter boards in their house. They used to be prominent in a lot of gyms, but one of the things about the scooter board is it's just enough off the ground to where babies can get those feet down. So you can get them sitting up if they've got good sitting balance. If they don't, you might have to help them a little bit, but you move their feet along, and so they're walking and moving the scooter board and pulling it down, but they're working on getting the heel strike, heel to toe pattern, and they've got wheels on the bottom of the scooter board. That's another thing that you can probably make. Scooter boards there. You used to be able to find them in Target and places like that. Not so much anymore. I haven't seen them recently in the store. You know, they're in all the therapy catalogs. They're easy to find online, but they are nice, made out of nice plastic, and they've got great wheels on the bottom. So they move pretty easily. Kids can go fast, they can go slow. They can also lay on their belly and do things where they're working on their hands. And this is great for your babies who need to work on that shoulder strength or getting those hands moving also. So scooter boards are a great thing. We also have for your, I guess, you know, 18 months too, you might have them on a little car. Now, I can't show you with the baby. His little legs aren't long enough, and mine are too long. So my knees come way up if I try to sit on this. But everybody knows, you know, a little race car, so you know how to do that and put your baby on it and get them pushing off with their feet. Again, we're working on that heel toe pattern, getting the feet flat and helping them develop, but helping them have fun. We've done the balance board. The other thing I was going to show is this is another form of rocker board, sort of. It's this one's got little squeegee things on the bottom. So my kids love it when it's out there on the kitchen floor and they can make it pop. So they'll go side to side. And they will do this, they'll do this in sitting, but they will also do this in standing. And I don't think I can get that in the camera without adjusting it a little bit. So if you're working on ankles and feet, you're going to challenge them a little bit by having them come into standing and then putting their foot on the outside, and then they're going to go side to side like that. Now you've also got another option here. This one you can flip over. It's nice and sturdy. So I wouldn't do that with those exercise boards. They're a little bit flimsier and you can't really walk on them, but this is a toy made for kids. So they can walk up, and then we're getting, you can see my ankles here, we're getting that nice range of the ankles as they have to go up, similar to walking up a slide or something like that. I think there are so many great things out there, but that you can play with that are just toys. I love taking toys that you already have in your house and then making those therapeutic. It's just so much more effective. For me, it really gives you guys the opportunity to play with things all day long. So it's really a nice way to help families learn things that they can use within their house just to work on development for their babies. The other thing is putting couch cushions down and getting a nice soft surface is great for those little ones. Once they've started walking, you can challenge them a little bit by throwing your couch cushions on your floor, and then they're having to balance a little bit more, and it just gets them a little bit stronger through those core muscles, which we all know are so important. But it also helps them work on balance and getting those balance reactions, and it's really great, and it's so easy to do. You just pull those couch cushions off. They can jump on them, and get input that way. They can do any number of things. So couch cushions are super great too. So that is all I have for everybody. Does anyone have any other questions that I can answer for you? I don't see anything coming in. But if you do have questions, it's usually easy to find therapists who are willing to share some ideas with you. At Enable My Child, we try to help out as much as we can by offering these webinars on a monthly basis and trying to, go in different ranges and different ideas and different topics. So I've enjoyed it tonight, and I hope you have too. Bye.